Hi, welcome everyone for today's live LinkedIn session about the topic communicating UX impact, telling the story behind the work. Telling the story behind the work is very important in different context, in many contexts, if you ask me, right? So in this today's session, we are going to see how we can better communicate the impact as a designers that you create or that you have created in your work. Right? So before we jump on to the actual content of the session, I just wanted to give you a quick bit of an intro uh, about myself and why I'm doing this and stuff. So I'm Santhosh RB. I have 22 plus years of experience in UX and product strategy. Worked with many of Fortune 500 giants like New York Stock Exchange, Kaviva, EP Lloyds in multiple countries across the regions. I'm founders of Unicorn Designer Hub, and also I'm a founder and a design leader at UX Ahead, right, which is one of my consulting wing, and other one is my mentorship wing, which is Unicorn Designer Hub. And I have a master's in human computer interaction with UCL, University College London, which is one of the top UX programs in the world. And I also have a master's in workshopping with AJ and Smart. More importantly, I organized India's first UX conference, UX Utsav, in 2012, which is one of the trend-setting events that shaped the UX industry in India at that point of time. And I'm more passionate about helping designers move from execution to strategy and to consulting. So that's why it brings to me this place where I'm being mentoring so many designers globally in last 15 plus years across different platforms. So based upon the learnings that I have learned from other designers, and also what I have experienced by interacting with other designers of helping their careers moving from execution to consulting, where that is what I'm passionate about, helping designers moving from execution to strategy and to consulting. And why I love speaking to designers is it's one of the important phases, be it your senior designer or you're a junior designer or whatever the role that you are in. The most important phase of your career is the phase where you are in a place that where you can actually make smart decisions, right? As a designer, that is one of the important things that you do, right? So this phase of your career is powerful and often underestimated, right? Because the tools will come today, the tools keep changing, but what one doesn't change is the way you make decisions and the way you strategize to making the decisions. So that is something which never change. The tools keep on changing, right? So all those decisions begin to shape products, teams, businesses, and your own career strategy trajectory, right? So that is one of the main reasons why I enjoyed speaking with designers or helping designers to move from one place of in their career to next phase, is about what the different things that they can shape. It's not just their career, it's also the business that they are going to work in, the products and the teams that are working. So that is a whole ecosystem that you can create an impact as a design leader, right? So that is something which is I'm more passionate about doing it. That's why I always love interacting with designers. So let's move on to understanding the four pillars of great design, right? So if you look at any design that you make, you will come across these four pillars, right? One of the first pillar of a great design is impact. What is the impact that you are creating through the design that you are producing? What it inspires to change and where it creates the opportunity, right? The impact is one of the main things that you as a designer that you should be able to measure, or you actually design something for an impact, right? So that is something which is one of the very first pillars of design. When it comes to impact, what at all it's going to impact, it's not just about in terms of you're creating the impact you are creating for the users. You also need to look at what is the impact that you are creating for the complete ecosystem of what you are actually designing. So it could be users, where in terms of impact about problem solving, what is the impact of the experience that you are creating for the users. And when it comes to employees, the designs that you're producing, is it going to create an impact on their productivity, or empowerment for that matter, and what is the impact it's going to create on the environment, right? Say for example, like if you're using sustainable practices in your design, is it going to create, what is the nature of impact it's going to create, right? It could be anything. Say for example, like from a dark screen to light screen, or in terms of actual design, it could be waste reduction. So many things, sustainability, or how we are actually impacting the environment, right? And also the most important thing which you will look into as a designer is about the impact that you create for the business processes, right? How how it is impacting the transformation of the project or scalability of the systems that you build, right? So impact is something which is very important, and when it comes to impact, you need to really look at the various aspects that the design that you're going to produce or the problem that you're going to solve, it's going to create impact on various users, in terms of users, employees, environment, business process. You can keep adding more structure to it, but this is something which is very core. As a users, as a designer, you shouldn't oversee any of these areas when it comes to impact. And the next design pillar is value. What is the value that you are driving through your designs? And the value, again, it is not just for the end users, it is the value for the entire ecosystem. Value for the users, the business, the environment, the business processes, how we are going to make whatever the design that you are going to produce is going to bring value to the business, right? How it's going to bring value to environment. Say, is it going to support eco-friendly practices, or it's going to support circular economy in terms of environment? And when it comes to value for the business process, is it going to make it more efficient, or it's going to bring more or save more cost, or bring more revenue, the return on investment? All these things is one of the main things that's one of the other pillars, which is the value, right? The users, and how the value are going to communicate across all these channels. And the third pillar is trust. As a designer, or as a design that you're going to produce, how you can build a long-term relationship with whoever using that design, right? Or who is part of that ecosystem, right? How you can build that long-term relationships, right? So trust, again, it's not just about building trust with the users, it is building trust with the employees who is part of the product, or building the trust with the business processes, and also more importantly users, right? Are you practicing ethical design? Are we trying to make their data secure, protected? Are we more transparent when it comes to letting them know about certain aspects, like for example, like compliances, terms and conditions, right? So how we are making the design trustworthy, right? Trusted by the users, right? And similarly, when it comes to employees, are we collaborating enough with all the users of the product, right? So it could be in the supply chain. Is there someone who is at the very fag end of the chain? Are we actually helping them, or are we helping them, or are we are building trust with them? So that is more important, right? So similarly, building trust across all these channels, right? So that is one of the key pillars, right? So the fourth pillar is about change. What is the change, the design that you are doing, or what you're coming up is going to bring? What it is going to transform? Is it going to transform industries, or it's going to challenge any norms that are already in practice, right? What is the change that is going to drive, right? Which is one of the key things that you need to understand. When it comes to change is something, again, it is not just for change for the people who are users, who are using the product or your design or interacting with your design. The change across all the spectrums that we discussed so far, like what is the change it's going to bring to the users? Is it helping them to innovate, or is it helping them to inspire? Or when it comes to environment, what is the change that is going to bring in, right? Is it going to bring more sustainable practices to the environment, or are you going to build something which is eco-conscious? And when it comes to business processes, or what is going to change? Is it going to disrupt, right? For example, like a design, what you might bring in, say in the example of Tesla for that matter, right? So there were electric cars before Tesla, right? But what they brought in is they brought in a disruption in the electric car segment by the way that they approached the design of the car, right? Building from scratch, right? So whatever the change that you come through design, is it going to be disrupting the industry, right? So what is the change? So what level of change is, right? So that is something which is important. So if you look at the four pillars, the four key pillars across for the design is change and trust, value, and more importantly, impact, right? You might be, as a designers, you might be keep hearing about impact in many aspects of your process, right? Especially when it comes to the interviews, when it comes to showcasing your case studies, or putting writing in your resume what is the impact that you created as a designer, right? So they will be looking for numbers, they will be looking for metrics. So that's why today's topic I chose to how you can effectively communicate the impact behind the UX that you are doing. So that is the key topic for today. And I will go move on to the other presentation which I have for this topic. So communicating UX impact, telling the story behind the work. So that is our main topic. And as I reiterated before, it is one of the main pillars of design, right? Communicate impact is one of the main pillars of the design, as we have seen before, right? So before we dwell deep into the actual content for this presentation, I just wanted to set the stage here, right? Why this session? Most UX work already has impact, right? As a designer, you design something for an impact, right? The problem is not lack of skill. The problem is lack of making that impact visible. So that is one of the key things that I'm going to address in today's session. How you can make the impact which often goes visible, which often goes invisible, how we can make it visible in your work, right? So that is the main context of this session. So what the common patterns that I see with designers who I've been mentoring for years now is that they explain what they did greatly by showing screens and flows. They list the research and the tools that they have used. When it comes to explaining why certain decisions they made, that's where they struggle, right? So this is a common pattern I see across most of the designers, regardless of uh, the seniority or the experience, right? So that's something which I keep on seeing. So how you can be more assured or more capable, make yourself capable of explaining certain designs when it is questioned, right? So that is one of the main things that we are going to look at in this topic, in this today's session. And also, as I mentioned, this session is all about making invisible work visible, communicating the thinking, not just the task. Say, like I did the user research, I did the information architecture, I did the UX flows. It's not about the deliverables, it's about the thinking behind those deliverables. So that is something which is important, like explaining the decisions and trade-offs across the design process. That is important, right? When someone is hiring you, they are not hiring for the end product that you are producing, right? So most importantly, they're hiring for someone who is this designer or this person capable to clarify the problem, or is this someone who can able to help us to collaborate more effectively, right? So that is the actual issues that they face as the product owner, or as a program product as a product owner, or as a product manager, or a hiring manager. That's what they will look for, right? So it is important for you to explain those decisions, right? So, and also showing outcomes, not just the activities, what the outcome, the activity that you did has contributed to. So that is more important. So we are going to look at how you can do all these things when it comes to communicating the impact of the UX work that you did. One thing at this point I wanted to reassure is that good design already touches the four key pillars that we have looked at, right? It will have an impact, it will have a value, it will have trust factors, and also it will inspire a change. But if the story doesn't reflect any of those pillars, the impact remains unseen, right? So that's why it is important for you to tell a story behind the work, right? So that's what we are going to look at, how you can tell the story behind the work so that your impact as a designer, or your impact, the designs that you produced, what the impact it has created, right? So that's what we are going to see now. So communicating the UX impact, right? Most designers explain what they did, but not why it mattered. So this is one of the common patterns across. This is across the board, not just in portfolios, or not just when it comes to resumes, even at the workplaces, right? When they present the designs to the stakeholders, or when they present the design to various other team members, communicating the impact, if they are not good at why they did a certain decisions a certain way, then there is lack of confidence in your design, right? So, or lack of maturity level. So that's why it is important for you to how to explain that, right? So UX storytelling turns invisible work into strategic influence, right? So that is something which we are going to look at, how you can tell a story behind your work so that turns the invisible, the strategic work that you have done as an influential aspect in the design outcomes that you have produced. So that is something that we are going to look at. And as I mentioned, this session move from deliverables to a clear outcome driven narrative. So how we can move from deliverables to a clear outcome driven narrative, right? So by adopting storytelling framework, we should be able to do that effectively. As a designer, it is important for you to look at and understand. The most important aspect is to understand the storytelling aspects of the design, right? Why storytelling matters in UX, right? Number one, stakeholders don't care about pixels, they care about results. Most designers present their work like this: we redesigned the settings page, we cleaned up the layout, added filters, changed the typography. Like, these are most of the cases that you end up in talking about the features or the functionalities that you have included in the design, right? If you look at it, it's a tour of features or functionality. It's not a story that you are communicating, why you did certain things, what it is contributing to. What the story does is, the story bridges the gap between the design thinking and the business value. So what actually stakeholders need to hear is, we helped reduce drop-offs by reframing the layout, which increased the completion rate by 18%. Here is how we made those decisions under certain constraints. It could be technology constraints, it could be time constraint, or it could be any constraints for that matter. Suddenly, if you look at more or less the same thing, for example, like, we redesigned the settings page, but here, like, we helped reduce drop-offs, right? So what value it driven for the business? What is the impact it is creating for the product or the business, right? Reducing drop-offs is one of the biggest impact parameter, right, when it comes to any designs, right? For a product or onboarding journeys, reducing drop-offs is one of the key business metrics, right? KPIs that the stakeholders will look at, right? So by showcasing what the impact, like, what is the KPI or what is the metrics that a particular design that you have done driving, will help you to communicate the impact more effectively, right? So the story behind that will help you to communicate effectively, right? So storytelling helps you to do three things. It builds trust across non-designers. When you are presenting for non-design background stakeholders, it will build the trust, and then it will showcase your thinking, not just screens. So here, the thinking is more important, not just screens, right? So how you arrived at making the decisions. So those are the things that the stakeholders will look at. And also, when it comes to the hiring process, the hiring managers or your the fellow designers will look at how you arrived at certain design decisions, right? So how, if you showcase that, then that will be more effective when it comes to storytelling, right? And also, storytelling will help you to translate complex work into relatable outcomes, right? So for example, like, we redesigned this homepage as simple as that you can communicate, right? Or you can tell a story that, okay, we got a lot of feedback from our marketing team that the users, they won't able to understand our services, and we are getting a lot of queries regarding that. So the redesign that what we are actually doing it is going to address that problem, where we are going to reduce number of calls or queries that we are getting to our sales or marketing teams. So that is the metrics, that is the outcome that you are driving, right? So by putting together a story that helps you to set the narrative for the work, first of all, or set the narrative for the impact what it's going to create, right? So that is, and also it is going to translate the complex work around your design into relatable outcomes, right? So we're going to help reduce the drop offs, or help increase the signups, or help to increase retentions, for example, right? So those are the main things that your stakeholders will be looking for, right? So that is something which will help when you put together a story behind your work, right? The UX story impact framework. So there are 5 parts to this story impact framework, and as a designers, you might already aware of all these 5 stages of design process, where you will refine the problem, or you set a context of what actually you are designing for, and you consider all the challenges. So if you might aware of this, but most importantly, how you can use this framework to communicate the impact story, right? So that's what we are going to look at, right? So when it comes to the problem, it is important for you to highlight what wasn't working before, right? Or what friction or opportunity triggered this work, why you are doing this redesign. That should there could be some reason, right? Or something that would have triggered that, right? Say for example, like we noticed there is 60% of users dropping off from our checkout pages. So that is a trigger point. So then how you can, so that is a problem, that's a trigger point. Then you are going to design, or you are designing for that, addressing that problem. Or it could be what wasn't working, if the homepage is not clearly structured, or for example the product landing page is not solving the purpose. It could be anything, right? So it is more important to identify these things, what wasn't working, and what is the friction or opportunity that triggered this work, right, as a part of the problem. And when it comes to the context, who affected by this? It could be business, it could be users, it could be both, it could be internal users, external users, it could be anything, right? So, or the business process itself got affected, right? Say for example, you haven't captured a data item which needs to be shown, so that has a huge impact across the various different business units, right? If that is the case, then it is the entire business process is getting affected, right? And why was this important now to solve this, right? What is the urgency, why it is important to solve this, right? And was there a specific incident or a signal which triggered this work, right? The context, right? The signal or a specific incident is important. As I mentioned, it could be more number of drop offs, or it could be a lot of call center calls. It could be anything for that matter. What triggered this signal? What is the signal for this is something not working well, right? And then it is important for you to include any challenges that made it very tricky. Maybe it's not a straightforward solution, right? You need to do something about it. Or it could be as simple as a technology challenge, something that cannot be done, or you need to fit into a technology which has been already chosen. It could be something like as simple as that, or it could be as it could be people problem as well, the challenge, right? So there could be multiple departments not aligning each other on the what needs to be done. So that is, as a designer, how you have navigated the challenge, how you brought clarity to everyone, how you brought everyone to the same page of understanding what you did to do that. Maybe you might have conducted a workshop, a collaborative session, you might have done a combined like how might we exercises. So what actually you did to navigate the challenge? Was there ambiguity, a lack of clarity, or pushbacks from your other stakeholders or even users? And what are those constraints, right? It is important to showcase those constraints or challenges in your story. So, based upon the problem, context, and challenge, what are the decisions that you made? Why did you choose to do, and what did you choose to do, and why? Right? It is important to communicate both. It's not about, okay, I included global search. It is important to tell why did you choose to include a global search. So that is more important. So that is what it is going to drive by including that feature or a functionality, right? And even before doing that, what options did you consider? What trade-offs you made before selecting that design or before selecting that part of the functionality? What influenced those decisions? You need to showcase all those things. It's not just about I created a like app screen with these features and functionalities, right? It is about showcasing why you did that and what is it's going to solve, right? So that is very important for you to have the decisions, right? In any your portfolio or anywhere, even if you're communicating to the your stakeholders, it is important to showcase those decisions. And then last, the outcome, which is one of the important aspects of the impact. What changed based upon what you have done? Is it increased signups, or is it decreased call center calls, or is it increased revenue? What is the outcome it driven? What was the signal of success? How you measured it? As a designers, I get this query quite often or not. As a designers, we don't involve in the full life cycle of a product. Then how we can show whether the particular product has increased revenue or improved certain things that we have worked against? So what I always say is, it doesn't need to include always quantifiable uh, metrics, right? Even you can qualify a quantifiable metrics, right? So that way you can safely say that, okay, this is we got positive feedback from 80% of users have received given us positive feedback, which signals a higher adoption rate, right, for the design. So even that level of signaling the outcome itself is more than sufficient, rather than including a metric which you haven't tracked. Don't It is not the right way to do that, right? So it is important for you to understand, right, what feedback did you hear and what metrics it moved, right? Increase the adoption rate, improved efficiency, increased decreased task completion time, whatever it is, right? If you're not measuring at the towards the end of the live product or something, at least showcase if you have done that or tracked for that metrics during your design process. And if you have received any feedback, include that, like what feedback did you hear, right, in the story, right? The bonus element that I would recommend to include is the learnings, especially in portfolio context. It is important to include the learnings. What surprised you as a designer, or did it change the way you think as a designer? Any challenges that you came across, right? And clearly also include next steps, like what you would have done if you had more time, or if you had an opportunity to conduct a user testing or an A/B testing, what you would have done, like if you had more time, right? So time is something that we always run against, right? As a designers, we always, to a greater extent or not, you're always pulled in at the last minute, and you work during the sprint for the design, right? Which always recommend at least work 2 sprints ahead of the design for the design, right? So in that sense, like you will get some time for you to do a proper design activity. If not, then we will end up in rushing things. So it is important for you to communicate, and the next steps is that what you would have done or improved if you had more time, right? So especially these bonus elements are in the portfolio context, right? Not necessarily in your work environment, but which you can do as well, but more importantly on the portfolio side of things, which your the hiring managers would love to see, right? If they wanted to, if there was more time, what you would have done. Now you understand the UX impact story framework. It is important to understand when to use this framework, right? There are different settings which demands this framework adjustments, right? So when it comes to portfolio or case studies, I would recommend to include the use of 5 full parts, right? Format. Include the problem statement, include the context, challenge, decisions, and the outcome driven. Especially when you are showcasing portfolio or case study, right? Include the metrics, visuals, feedback, codes, whatever that you have, show that you can show the impact, right? How you have arrived at those decision points, right? So include the full 5 part framework, right? When it comes to team reviews or stakeholder sync ups, or design critiques, those type, you don't need to include all, right? You can include to condense that to three key information, which is a problem, decision, and the outcome, right? So that is something which will help you to effectively communicate to your stakeholders, right? Don't need to include all the five to an extent, right? And obviously use support elements like slides or visuals to tell the story, right? Don't just present the final output and say that, look at, this is the redesigned page, or this is the redesign, or this is the journey, right? Don't just present the outcome straight away. Build the story, why you have done it, this is the problem that we have identified, and these are the steps we have taken, these are the key decision points that we have included in this, and this is the outcome that it is driving, right? So when you tell that narrative, build that narrative in your presentations, then you are effectively communicating the impact of you as an individual, as a designer, number one, and also communicating the impact the design that you have produced going to provide for the product or the users or the environment or the other key four pillars that we have looked at, right? So that is very important. And when it comes to interview settings where time is something, you're running against the time, you'll get a certain time frame only, right? So maybe in a 45 minutes interview or a 90 minutes interview, or maybe like you will have 5 minutes to present a use case study, right? So in that scenario, it is important for you to lead with the outcome and backtrack to the problem, right? In this project, for example, or in this case study, what we are going to look at, I have increased the adoption rate of this particular product by 50%, right? Outcome, what you have achieved as a design leader, communicate that first in the interview processes or interview settings, and then backtrack it to the problem. So why you have done that? Like we have seen, there is a lot of drop offs, or there is, after three initial signups, the users are not returning back. So you backtrack that to the problem, and then you tell like what all you did to come to this outcome. So it is important to communicate the outcome first in the interview settings. That is something which the hiring managers or the people who are you are interviewing you, they will be looking for, like effectively how you have provided the impact, right? And also it is important in the interview settings to include reflections and lessons learned, right? So that is something which I would recommend to do that, right? So what we have looked at, we looked at story, the UX impact story framework, and also we looked at different settings might require different aspects of the UX impact story framework, right? You don't need to include everything at all the scenarios. Choose what to include as per the settings, right? So now I would wanted to quickly showcase a real world example of Airbnb, how they have included this framework, right? The storytelling framework, so that you can relate. So Airbnb is one of the, like the brands, I think most of the designers you could have come across or used their site for the booking, or some might be hosting, right? So that you might have be aware of it. So I took that example. So here the problem what Airbnb had in the early days, right? Airbnb was just a listing site for spare rooms and rentals. This is way back in 2008 and 2009, where you can go and find, is there any spare rooms that are available where I can rent, right? Rooms and rentals, right? So that was in the early days of Airbnb, right? But they noticed a deeper problem in the market. What problem is, people don't trust strangers on the internet. It was 15, even now they don't trust strangers. But this is a deeper problem that they noticed, especially with something as personal as sharing a home, or you are going to live with somebody who you don't know, right? That was the core problem that they identified, right? And they weren't just competing with hotels, they were actually competing with the user psychology of being skeptical of staying in strangers home, right? So what Airbnb was trying to do is not just list rooms so that anyone can go and stay in somebody's home. This is about changing the human behavior of trusting a stranger over a branded hotel, right? Which is a very big impact for the ecosystem, right? It is actually changing somebody's behavior, like how they used to stay when they travel, right? So for that, the problem that they identified was trust. How you can build trust. So the context here is, as explained, it's the lack of trust in a two-sided marketplace. The hosts need to trust the guests need to trust the host, so that the trade can happen, the booking can happen, right? So that is the context, the trust, right? When it comes to the challenge, it is about building emotional confidence in both parties without traditional hotel system. Like you trust the hotel. Say for example, like when you say like Holiday Inn or the Taj or any star hotels or anything trusted businesses, right? So that is well established trusted business. You are competing against that, right? It's building, right? How you can build that emotional confidence in both parties without traditional hotel system, right? So the business goal, what they had is to increase booking conversion rates, to reduce the drop off during the booking flow, and more importantly, build trust at scale without meeting people in person. So this is a bigger challenge that they were up against. So for that, they made some key design decisions to tackle those challenges. What are those decisions? We're not going to dig deep into it. I just wanted to highlight so that you feel you can compare the storytelling framework here, impact framework. The strategic UX solutions, what they have decided is, rather than just improving the UI layouts or making buttons prettier, Airbnb asked one key question is, what are the real fears people have before booking? And how we can, which is the trust, and how we can design for trust in every step of the journey. So what they have done, they have went and made some key design decisions, which is to host profile with verification reviews, right? The key decisions is supporting how they can design for trust in every step of the journey of being a host, or journey of being if you're going into renting, right? How you can build the trust for both parties, right? So they made some key design decisions, which is about hosting profiles with verification reviews, listing photos. Like initially, even they offered professional photography support for hosts, right? And then they included, off late, they included superhost batches to reward consistent quality, instant response rate batches, encouraged messaging and before booking, right? If you look at all these features, what they have come up with is not just a fluke. Just for having a host profile or just for having a review, they haven't had it. It's all informed by a problem that they are trying to solve, the challenges that they had. And based upon that, they made clear, informed decisions, design decisions. If anyone who asks a designer who made why you have including host profiles with verification and reviews, like why we need that feature in our design, they would have clearly communicated the impact, which is by having this will increase the trust factor for our hosts. Then that's where the impact as a designer you are communicating, and also impact as the features or designs that you build, you're communicating, right? So it is important for you to first of all identify these key design decision moments that you made and document it, especially when it comes to portfolio storytelling. That will help you a lot. Like what are the key decision moments that you have come across and that helped you to showcase like the design that you have as a final product, right? So it is important to show all these workings. So design decisions and outcome, which we all know today, it is one of the biggest brands, which has lots of increased bookings, host participation, higher repeat use, increased trust metrics, and product adoption across both sides. This is more important. They didn't just build for the one part of the users, they built the trust across the both users, right? So now if you see, using this framework, you can clearly and effectively communicate the impact of your design work, UX, right? For Airbnb case, it is trust. For the product that you are doing, it could be anything, maybe trust or maybe speed and effectiveness. So how you can design for speed, right? What is Google, for example, like how you can design for speed and minimalist, right? So that is something which actually, when you have identified the impact that you're going to drive, then that's where you will be more effective as a designer, when you can communicate those. So that is something which is important, right? So we looked at this, telling the story behind the work, and also we looked at a real world example how this we can relate to that story arc, right? So last, before we close the session, just time consuming, time conscious here, we have 3 minutes more. So before I close, I just wanted to give an impact challenge for whoever attending this call or watching this later. I want to give a challenge about, so why this challenge? Learning sticks when shared publicly, right? And communication improves through practice. You keep doing something, then you will improve, right? If you keep designing for change, you will improve as a change maker. If you keep documenting the impact that you produced and showcase that, then you will be better in communicating the impact as a designer, right? So impact becomes clearer when articulated. So the challenge what I wanted to give for people who are attending or watching this later, I want you to share one short UX impact story on LinkedIn. Just keep it simple. It could be any of your previous work, or it could be a pilot project which you have worked. It could be anything. Just try to write an impact story on LinkedIn. Keep it simple, no slides, no polish, just clarity. What you have, what is the challenge, what is the problem, what is the challenge, what is the context, what is the challenge, the decisions, and the outcome, what it has driven. Just keep it very simple. And one suggested structure, what I would recommend is to adapt, use the 5-part format or a short narrative version, where you can clearly capture the problem, what was happening, decision, what did you choose to do, why did it matter, and the outcome, what changed as a result, right? And if you can include that in your structure, I think that will showcase a clear impact of you as a designer, and also what the impact that the design that you made drive, right? So if you can do that, share that, and post on LinkedIn, tag me, optional reflections in comments, so that I will try to read as many posts, and also people who are participating, they can feedback on it. So it helps to improve you as a designer when you feedback on others, and also when you communicate it, right? So that is important. And the purpose of doing this is practice communicating the impact, building confidence through articulation, right? And making UX thinking visible. It is not just about the final polished UI or the screens. It is about the thinking that you have put together, or through you did throughout the design process, making that visible, right? So that is more important, right? So that is the main purpose of doing this, documenting it, right? So before we close, I just wanted to uh, quick key takeaways for today's session. Key takeaways that I would wanted to. So you don't need flashy visuals to show influence. What you need is the impact, right? The impact is combination of how you framed, what is the value it driven, plus the key decisions that you made as a designer, and the outcome it has driven, right? So that actually sums up the impact for you as a designer, or as a designer, how what or as a design that you produced, the impact it has created. And as a when you showcase the workings, it will also showcase the impact that you made as a designer to the product, right? So that is important. And different audiences need different story formats. Wisely choose between the 5-part or the 3-part, depending upon the situation and the time you have. And also, when it comes to interviews settings, always lead with the outcome and backtrack it to the problem, right? And then stories make your design work visible and valuable. That is more important. If you can communicate your design work through stories, that will make it more visible and valuable. And strategic designers don't just design better, they explain better the rationale behind the design, and the impact it is going to produce. So that is something which is important. It will help you to explain your design decisions better when you do the impact framework. And your story is your strongest design asset. It's not the tools, it's not what you can do with your Figma or any other tools for that matter. It is about the story that you are going to put together as a designer, what you made, the key decisions that you made through the design process. That will be your the strongest asset when it comes to communicating the impact, right? So that brings us to the close of the session. I would love to receive any feedback that you have. Please feel free to comment in the LinkedIn post, and also feel free to uh, connect with me and visit my website, which is unicorndesignerhub.com. I will share it in the post, LinkedIn post, attached in the comment section, so that feel free to reach out me if you need any further mentorship, or if you need any help in navigating your design career. More than happy to help across. So again, once again, I would like to take this opportunity for everyone who has joined this live, and have a good reflection of what you have done so far in your the last year, or maybe it could be a good reflection point when we are doing it towards the end of this end of the year, and have a strategic plan to for your career, and as what you can do in the coming years, right? Happy new year to all, and thank you everyone for joining.